Howdy everyone, welcome back to From Campus to Corporate. I am your host, Jacoby Aguilar, and today I am joined with...
Faith Doucette.
Howdy Faith, thank you for being here. For those of you that do not know, Faith is a material planner and execution specialist over at Baker Hughes, a role that she's recently garnered. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Faith is a graduate from the University of Houston downtown, and not just any graduate, but an alumni from the master's program. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So help me out, Faith. I know I should have done my homework in terms of your LinkedIn profile. What was your concentration in exactly?
Supply chain management.
Okay, so supply chain management master's degree.
Yes.
All right, cool, sweet.
Yes.
So from obtaining that supply chain master's degree, where was the connection from, okay, getting my master's in supply chain to working at Baker Hughes? Can you walk me through those steps?
Okay, so first, I'll just start back in the beginning of my career, my college career.
Sure.
I started at junior college in Baytown called Lee College. And I remember this one day I was in a business class and this girl had a presentation. Like, I think we had to talk about our career choice and we had to do research, undergrad stuff. Like, okay, if we do this, this is what our future looks like. So this girl, she done hers over logistics and supply chain. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. It seems like a safe route, So I was like, I kept on with just general business. Then I got my undergrad in management, but my concentration back then was small business and entrepreneurship.
Wow.
At the time, shortly after I finished undergrad, I started working in logistics. And a few weeks after graduating, this guy in one of the group meets, cause I still had a lot of them on because, you have to leave the group.
Yeah.
So somebody sent this flyer for Apex. It's like a supply chain certification program. And I started looking into it and I'm like, for the price and the time, I'm like, I should just go back to school. Because I'm like, it's just a certification. It's not, I wouldn't say that it's not that serious, but doing the comparison to the MBA, I was like, okay, UHD has a supply chain management program. I'm just going to go ahead and just go for it.
Nice, we got you.
So that's how it got sold.
So you decided to come here for your MBA.
Right.
And then how did we go from, I guess, achieving that master's to, better yet, how did you kind of land your position where you are now? Was it career fairs? Or?
No, actually, I started there through another company. They were my client. I was working on this project for them through another company. They were my client, and I got I started networking, getting to know people, and the project that I was working on, I was able to shine. So that's pretty much how I landed. They were a client. I found out about a job opportunity. I applied. I knew the site manager, talked to him, got an interview.
Wow. Okay.
So I wouldn't say it was luck, but
no, it was.
But
hard,
it wasn't
hard
a fair, so I did not participate in job fairs. I hadn't got to that point yet. I was just working and feeling around.
That's no problem. A big thing that I think that all students should be aware of is the fact that everyone's kind of path is different. While of course we always recommend and hammer home, please come to our job fairs and please do this.
Definitely was going to, but it's just the timing, and I was always at work. It's in the middle of the day, so I'd have to take off. I just never got around to it, but I was going to.
And again, that's fair. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
I've had multiple students where I've had conversations with them, and I'll say, why don't you come out to the career fair? There's going to be so many recruiters and so many opportunities. Right. And they'll say, I would love to. It's during the middle of the day when I'm working. I've got family, I've got kids, I've got this, so on and so forth. And that's all real, and that's all fair, and that's all valid. So I'm happy that you bring up this other kind of route that expresses you did good work. That good work was recognized, and then you maintained those connections, which then fostered you being able to, of course, you also did that personal research. You found the job.
Right.
And then, because you already had that connection, that was something that was, I guess, a boon, right?
Yeah.
That's how I would put it. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that and giving students this opportunity to see that there's more than one route, right?
Right. But I would say, I would like to add that the professors that I had, they gave us the right tools. Like, I can't say specifically, but just from the advice from like networking and working hard, like that is real. Like, you can't just go to school and expect to get a job. And the mock interviews, I use those, the virtual ones they had online. I use those. They work.
And I'm so happy you mentioned mock
And the
interviews.
questions are on point.
I say this a lot, and I'm sure people get tired of it, but I can't pay for better answers, you know? when you're just like, oh yes, this thing, I did it all the time and it helped out so
Definitely.
much. Is it, well, if you don't mind, you've already done me such a big favor by saying that already. But do you find it to be true that the more you practice answering those questions, the easier it comes to respond to them?
Yes. You need to practice. Absolutely. I mean, granted, the questions are not always going to be the same because you might just get someone that's laid back. You might get someone that does go by all those questions, but I've had a mixture of both. Like, when I got this job where Baker Hughes was the client, it was super laid back. Like, I was all nervous. I had practiced all these questions, like practicing and like, because I was just nervous. I'm not a good interviewer. But the job that I landed where Baker Hughes was the client, she was like super laid back. Like,
Wow.
She asked me like random questions. It wasn't like interview questions. It was more like personality characteristics type of questions.
Okay. And not like in stream of like behavioral questions, even aside from that.
Not behavioral.
Not behavioral questions.
Yeah,
whatsoever.
not at all. Like, more like characteristics. It was interesting.
Well, you know what? I know that interviewing it's both a science and a philosophy, from what I understand about it. So hey, you never know what you're gonna run into.
You never know.
So we're talking about interviews, and interviews are challenging in their own right. But I want to kind of go ahead and switch gears back to your graduate degree, right? I want to know from you, in your words, what do you feel like the biggest challenge was you had to overcome within your master's program?
Okay, so with the master's program, time management is big because the classes are in the evening. Most people are working full time. Some people have kids. I have a son. It was hard, get off of work, get him settled, get all the way over here, like the commute, the traffic. So time management really, like, especially with face-to-face classes, is just making time to be here. And then, of course, making time to study, making time to read. The reading. It's so much reading. But yeah, time management is serious. Like, you got to set those tasks. And I guess my best advice would be to look at your syllabus, put it on the calendar, and set tasks for each week. Like, okay, I need to get this done. It's going to take me this amount of time. You got to really prioritize, especially in the master's program, because I believe the courses are like 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Some are 6 weeks. The summer is 6 weeks. Yeah. And then normal is 8 weeks. So it's very fast paced. So every minute counts.
Oh, I believe it. It really does sound like an MBA is a lot to juggle alongside like just the everyday like life things that you're dealing with on top of work. And I mean, all the parts go together, but at the end of it, you're doing it because it's an investment, right?
Right.
It
paid off.
It paid off.
It did pay off. I used to question it like every day I'm driving up here, paying to park because I was too cheap to buy a parking permit. I'm like, man, this better pay off. And it paid off.
Well, that's good. I'm happy to hear that. So biggest thing seems to be time management. Knowing how to organize yourself and divvy out time to each task as required. Follow up, of course. What other tips, if any, right, would you have for students that are pursuing their master's right now?
Just really looking at the syllabus and no, seriously, it sounds simple. Like, of course you're looking at the syllabus, but in the master program, and I guess some of y'all's undergrad classes, you would see the syllabus are very long. Like, they are very long. And I would literally rip out the schedule on the syllabus, put it on the wall, fill out my calendar, and just go.
So it's not something you do like as it's happening. You have to, what you did was...
No, I would do it ahead of time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like, so as soon as the class starts, I mean, granted, some syllabus, of course, they can change. But I would look at it, and I'm like, okay, I'm looking weeks ahead. Like, okay, we have this coming up, we have a project, the test is this, or, you know, some classes only have one test, or, you know, it gets real complex the higher up you go. But I would do that. I would look at it, put it on the wall, write it in my calendar. So I can see it. Like, I can see what's coming.
That makes sense. So it's like...
That worked for me, at least.
Got it. So you're not looking a week in advance. You're looking weeks, a month, 2 months in
right.
advance.
I mean, of course, for the week, you're looking at this week, but what about next week? You know, it's coming up on you. You might have a quiz, a test, some huge assignment. You got to look ahead of time. So you know, okay, in your personal life, I have this going on. What time do I need to leave this event so I have enough time to study? You know?
Got it.
Just pretty much making time to study. It sounds boring, but
it's all for a good cause, which is, you know, an investment into that degree. Of course, it's not just the school, as you mentioned before.
Right.
Which, you know what? Since we mentioned it, outside of school, what other things did you utilize to help you kind of prepare or become, you know, or to like help your personal brand? I might put it. Okay,
so first off, you need to have discipline. You need to, I wouldn't say have a plan, but yeah, have a plan, but understand that plans change. And when plans change, you have to adapt. It's just that simple. But definitely experience. If you can work in the field that you want to pursue your career in before you get your degree, that would be great. But I will say that I felt like I was one of the youngest people in most of my classes. And I was working in the field that I wanted to, but at the same time, for example, if you do get your bachelor's and then you're working somewhere and then you want to climb the ladder and then you get the MBA because they're paying for it, it just depends. Like, it just depends on your journey and your path. Like, for me, that's the way it happened. Like, I was already in my field. So I was just trying to get more knowledge on the field itself, because I was working in it, but I don't feel like where I was, I didn't have room to grow. Like, there was no way that I was going to be able to, you know, level up. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to school and then work somewhere else.
So it sounds kind of like you were already working in that field after achieving your undergraduate degree,
right? And
you hit kind of like a metaphorical, or maybe I'm not sure, literal, maybe plateau. like plateau or ceiling. Like, you could not go any higher until you achieve this higher level of education.
Right, but not necessarily. I mean, okay, I could go higher maybe with another company, but at the company that I was at, there's people there that's been there years and just waiting to move up, you know?
Oh, God.
And I felt like, okay, I don't really want to be in this environment, so I'm going to go to school, work through school, and then find something else. And that's what I did.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So, I guess to answer your question, getting experience, networking, you know, YouTube.
YouTube?
Really, YouTube.
Oh, how so?
Like, watching people interview, looking into, the day in the life of, you know, whatever role you want to be. People share, you know, their experiences and things like that.
Got it. I know I'm leaving these a bit open-ended, but it's just because whatever your experience is, I want that to be kind of shared with students so that they can, you know, maybe add a bit of, you know, your experience, the knowledge that you've gained into their own little repertoire. I do want to say that we've talked about things that you can do to build yourself professionally outside of, you know, just school, right? And so I'm wondering how those things have contributed to the work that you're doing right now. I'm curious about I know that you haven't been there for long. You haven't been at Baker Hughes for the longest time.
Right.
But you've been working. So I'm curious about is there any particular project that you've done that you were like, oh, I'm proud of this. I'm happy about the way that this turned out. And if so, would you mind telling us that story?
Yeah. So in November, I started this logistics analyst role for another company where Baker Hughes was the client, and I was working on site at Baker Hughes where I work now. But just, you know, not in this role.
Under the umbrella of
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the project is it's a program called Duty Drawback, and what Duty Drawback is basically getting a refund on duties paid on exports. So Baker Hughes had a backlog of exports that they had not yet claimed. And my job was to go in and pretty much clean up that backlog and get as much back as we could. But doing so, we had to go through documents and make sure they had all the right things and able to be claimed. And during that project, it was about 5-6 months, we were able to reclaim $1.2 million. So, like I said, I got recognized on my accomplishments because I was working very closely with some executive and, top level management. So, it wasn't hard for me to kind of,
When the time came.
Right, when the time came. I didn't just say, hey, are y'all hiring? But I was working there. The project was wrapping up. My timeline was wrapping up to finish the backlog. And I was walking around the warehouse because they manufacture. And they had all these job postings. So I talked to the site manager. I was like, I saw y'all had a lot of job postings. I was interested. And he was like, we'll talk about it. So he set aside some time and we had a meeting. And then he asked for my resume. I showed it to him and he was like, oh my gosh, I did not know your history. And I'm just yeah. Yeah. So that was my moment, kind of.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. We can share all of those things, right? That's
okay,
yeah. Great. Awesome.
I didn't put the details,
no,
but yeah.
But yeah, that's quite the achievement. Congratulations.
Yes,
that's amazing. Sorry, I'm still kind of taken aback. That's a lot.
Yeah.
But I feel, and the reason I say that is because, when I was in my undergrad, they would show us videos, right? They'd be like, oh yeah, look at this particularly successful student that worked at insert company in supply chain. And in their first year, they saved the company X million dollars. Right. And I'm just like, there's no way that happens.
It could.
Meanwhile.
It could.
Yeah, it really does. So
definitely.
That's amazing. I am curious. So clearly the work you do it well. I'm curious about, in your opinion, what are the top 3 kind of I guess I would refer to them as soft skills that you utilize daily in your role?
So definitely being a good communicator, being punctual, organized, pretty much on a day-to-day I'm using Excel all day. So I would definitely, for the students, those classes that you have to take where you have to be really good in Excel, I would say ask questions, learn more, keep the book, talk to the professor. Don't just be oh, I'm never going to need this, because you're literally going to need it.
Literally going to need it.
Literally. My whole life is spreadsheets, pretty much. So, the more you know how to do in Excel, the easier your day is going to go.
Okay.
I would say that.
All right. That's a big old boon for
No,
Excel.
Definitely. Well, it depends on your role, but most people use Excel all the time.
Okay. What is it? And just again to reiterate for everyone else, material planner and execution specialist.
Right.
Big old boon for Excel. A lot of it.
Yes.
So, are there any other? And I guess we refer to these as technical skills. So you're using Excel. Are there any other common software that you use within your role?
Oh, we use SAP.
Oh, SAP.
Yeah. But like I said, the spreadsheets come out of SAP. So you gotta. Okay, so I'll just give you a little details on what my role entails.
Mm-hmm.
So Baker Hughes makes valves, pumps, and gears, and I'm responsible for different materials. Obviously, material planner, but the materials that I'm responsible for, I have to watch the forecast and kind of predict, because we don't use all the forecasts because it's not 100% accurate, but look for the demand and make sure that we're on schedule to building it. Whether that be in the warehouse, are we on schedule? Do we have the parts? Then talk to the buyer. We need these parts. Where are they? Pretty much like an expediter type of situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so doing so, I have to look at what's coming in, what the schedule is, So Excel is you have to use it because you have to see, and you can run all types of, you can run reports to kind of pull out what's yours and what's not yours, what's today, what's this week, what's this month, what's next month. and so forth.
Got it. So there's just a lot of information, a lot of data.
You know, it's a lot of
data
data
all the time.
Yeah, because I have several material. Well, there's hundreds of materials, but I'm responsible for 3 different things, I would say. It's kind of hard to explain, but of the things that I'm responsible for, it contains hundreds of materials. So, like, for example, they have valve planners. I'm planning for different products. The product lines that I'm responsible for entail, like, hundreds of material. So it's a lot to look at, you know?
Sounds like a lot to...
It's a lot to process, really. Like, the first few days, I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is a lot. But now I'm getting the hang of it.
Got it. I'm curious now. Since you sparked something in my mind. Something that's been going around a lot lately is people having this question of, when can I apply for a job? Do I have to meet every possible qualification that's listed? Am I underqualified if I don't meet everything? Is everything that they have on like the requirements or preferences, are they actually required? This, that, whatever. In your experience and given what you're explaining, can you weigh in on that?
Okay, so it just depends.
Just depends.
I feel like most of the time it's they mean it. Like, you need to know at least a little bit about this, like, or at least be familiar with it. And that's where YouTube comes in, because I mean, even if you're not like 100% proficient in something, you can learn a little bit. Like, you're not going to know everything. So I feel like you shouldn't let the qualifications, like, turn you away. Kind of look at it and be like, is this something I can learn on my own? And then try it out. I wouldn't say like go in there like lying.
No.
But if it's something that's teachable, like, in a timely manner, apply. Apply. You never know.
I'm happy you say that. Again, a lot of these things that come off the top of the head are conversations that I've had with students during our sessions, right? I've had a student say, I feel like I've applied for a job, and I've applied for everything that I feel that I qualify for, that I meet 100% of the requirements for in every way, shape, and form. And I've had that conversation, and I've told them, a lot of the times those requirements, there are different portions, right? There's the portion that says what's required, and then there's the portion that says preferences.
Right.
It would be those preferences are like really wish list things. They would really like it if you had it. But if you could learn a little bit of it yourself,
exactly,
or if there's some way for you to like garner some knowledge about it, it's not the end of the world. You can still apply for that position. So it's good to hear you say it's not. Like,
I wouldn't say go lying. I'm not telling you to lie on your resume. Don't do that, because they do employment history checks. But FYI, if y'all are not familiar, but definitely don't just be like, I'm not gonna apply, because you never know. You might get that call. And I mean, you can be honest and be like, well, I only have this much experience. Like, once you get your foot in the door a little, I only have this. And then they're like, we'll teach you. Because most jobs are going to train you. They're not going to expect you to be able to walk in and do the job.
Right.
So, I wouldn't just be like, oh, I'm not qualified. I would still apply, personally.
There you go. All right.
Yeah.
I like that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And to my knowledge, not every company feels that same way in terms of, like, absolutely, we're happy to take you in and we'll train you about everything. Right. I would love if the majority, I think many of them are, not every last one, but many of them are like, oh yeah, happily we'll train you, we will pour into you, because we after having a conversation with you, after interviewing you, know that you're going to pour into us, and they want to have that like mutual kind of thing. Right. I'm curious about, like, in your experience with Baker Hughes right now, what do you feel sets Baker Hughes apart from other companies of its within its industry and of a similar like size?
So, I've noticed there's a few things I've noticed. They have a lot of programs. Like, they have the Ascend program, Aspire. I don't know if you have ever heard of those, but they take candidates from the Aspire one is actually their own program, where like they kind of groom you from graduating all the way. Like, it's like they set a plan for you, and you take positions and climb the ladder. And then there's another program, the Ascend, is military. Same thing, same concept. So I would say that for starters, they're giving opportunities to people from other, areas of expertise in a way. The internal one is obviously like they want to do supply chain, but the military one is different backgrounds. Like the contact that I had, that I work closely with now, she came from a different background. But sometimes that's a good thing because you can see things differently. You might see something that no one else noticed because everybody else was groomed the same way. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep, that makes sense to me.
So that sets them apart there, the programs, but it's not just the oil and gas company. Like, it's more than just oil and gas. It's broken into 2 sectors, which are the oil field and equipment services,
yes,
and then the industrial energy tech. So, yeah. There's a lot of opportunities. And from what I've seen and the people that I've met, most people have been with the company at least 4 or 5 years and have like been in different roles. Like, it's not like they're just stuck in one role. There's always something. There's always another opportunity. And I feel like that's good. It's not people leaving. Like, if they leave, they're going to another role. Mm-hmm. And I saw a lot of that, and that kind of, piqued my interest because when I was blessed with this role, he was like, we want to keep fresh meat here and fresh from MBA program. Mm-hmm. We want fresh and new ideas, and we need that in the company. So I'm like, okay, if I can prove myself in this first year or 2, then definitely there's going to be another opportunity for me to chase.
And I'm starting to notice a little bit of a pattern as I have more conversations with people. It's really good to hear that, companies, they'll take you in at, based on the knowledge that you have and like your intended major and your intended career path. But even once you're there are like branches, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And to your knowledge, like there are branches, like say if you wanted like supply chain operations, all of that kind of can go in a million different ways on its own.
Yeah.
But even outside of that, like there are like pathways if you wanted to do entirely like different like sections of work, kind of like different departments.
Yeah, there's different departments. It's just so much that goes into it because it's a team of, everybody making things work. Like, for example, inside the office where I work now, they have the customer service representatives, like the customer service team. They have the buyers and sourcing department. They have the planners. And then they have the management team that are over, different parts of the warehouse. So it's like, we all work together. We all make it happen. So, depending on what you went to school for, you might find something for you in there. Like accounting, finance, all of that business stuff.
All that business stuff, all of that jazz. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just thinking about it. It's so, to me, wild that like students will have these opportunities, but they just need to get in there first.
Absolutely.
And what I'm curious about is, so you started your career path prior to your MBA program. You were in the field well before. So when you actually entered the field, was that, I guess, right out of undergrad, or was that during undergrad?
Yeah, it was like right afterwards. Like, I finished in December 2019, and then I got that job in like March, during COVID, actually.
Wow.
Oh. Yeah, during COVID.
So, then I guess
or March, June, something like that. First quarter of the year.
Yeah, first quarter. So I guess we've kind of already discussed a little bit about how, some advice that you would give to students if in terms of like, professional development, as well as some advice in terms of like things when, going through your MBA program and things like that. What are some tips that you might give to students that are just, looking for their first role?
I would strongly recommend they come to the fairs because it's hard to get a job, and depending on your field, it can be hard, and then you feel defeated because you keep getting no's, and then like when you keep getting no's, that's when you're like, okay, maybe I should do something different. And that's why I'm recommending they come to the fairs, because things just worked out for me. Like, I just got lucky, and it's really hard out there. Like, it's hard. So I would just say come to the job fairs. Of course, LinkedIn, Indeed, But I mean, for your first major role, I just feel like maybe a job fair would be best, because you don't want to, like, they have a lot of sketchy stuff these days. Like, I don't know, like, if y'all have been up to date with, like, there's scammers on Indeed. Like, there's definitely scammers on there. I mean, there's scammers on LinkedIn too, but
I did hear about like some wave of just like phony kind of like
right. So I would say like try to do like your job search in a well-established area. Yes. Like, don't just depend on the internet. You know.
So using the opportunity of like a fair, because it's
a fair, because people. Right, it's not like, you know, it's less likely to have that happen.
I get that. That absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
So you mentioned LinkedIn, right? And something that I tend to, recommend to students is, if when in doubt and you don't know who to reach out to, especially because here at the University of Houston downtown, we have a lot of folks that happen to be first generation. I went to the University of Houston. We have a lot of folks that are first generation there too. And a lot of times we have folks that just, they don't have another person to like reach out to, rely on, depend on, ask questions. And what I'll recommend to them is say, hey, go to LinkedIn, go to our page for your university, UHD, go to the alumni tab, and reach out to people.
Yeah.
These are people that have gone through this, the very thing that you're dealing with right now. But anyways, that's a lot of context for a pretty straightforward question. Question being, is there anyone that you reach out to and contact on a regular basis, like a mentor?
Yes, I do have a few mentors, actually.
A few?
I have a few.
Okay, please, go on.
I have old supervisors from past jobs, like, that became, like, friends. And then I have old professors and my contact, or ex-contact, before I was part of Baker Hughes officially, Antoinette at work. She's a mentor to me as well. But yeah, definitely I would highly recommend you get a mentor, whether it be an old professor, an old manager, or I don't know. It would have to be someone of a professional stance, of course. Like, and of course friends too, but I feel like it works better with, as a professional level of mentor.
From what you say, since it's not a single mentor, but multiple, it's more like a board of directors, I might.
It's your support system.
Your support system. A lot of people that you can reach out to on that like professional level, that you can like, give updates to and like seek advice from.
Right.
I'm happy to hear that you have more than one, because maybe some people will choose to get at least one.
No, definitely. You want to have more than, I wouldn't say have a whole crew of people.
A pantheon of mentors.
But it's good to tell someone something and get an unbiased response. Mm-hmm. Like, because you can't vent to everybody at your workplace.
No.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's good to just be like, let me cool off a second and talk to such and such. And then you're like, okay, maybe I was just being a little, you can kind of see it more clearly. Mm-hmm. And, just basically a mentor, really, they're going to open your mind to things and kind of keep you going. Like, you have these goals set. What are you doing to get here? Well, if you want to take this path, you need to do this. Kind of like steer you along, give you information, it's really advice.
It sounds like what I'm understanding, right, is that same mentality that you had during your like graduate program of I'm going to rip the syllabus into pieces, paste it on the wall, and figure out everything. You've brought that into your professional life, and you still figure things out in advance. You have conversations with your mentors, planning out your kind of career goals piece by piece, and you're following a path that you've kind of curated for yourself, along with the help of your board of directors and the professional environment that you're within, right? I'm curious, which is, I can't help it, that's just my favorite phrase. About how do you feel that the current work that you do like right now has impacted or affected like your life as a whole? Do you feel as though there are certain traits that you take from the work that you do and apply to your personal life?
Well, because I'm a planner, you have to be organized, and I felt like I was kind of already this way. Like, I've always been goal oriented. Like, I've always kept a board with my goals for the year, my goals for the month. and like on the calendar, even a goal for the week, like, you know, you got to keep yourself moving. You got to keep that momentum, because if you don't set those goals and you're not doing anything to get there, how are you going to make progress? You know? So I definitely feel like this role has, you know, touched on my personal life and my professional growth, because I feel like this is my first, well, even though I was already in logistics, I was working 3PL, and it was kind of like, you know, the doers. Like, you know, I was doing all the legwork.
Yeah.
So now I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm actually in a position to make that professional growth. Like, this is my moment. like this is my moment. That's how I feel. Because I'm like, okay, it's Baker Hughes. Like, it's just, I was overwhelmed, really. It took me a while to kind of like really accept it, because like things weren't going my way for so long. So I was like, man, like, is this really happening? But, you know, I took my blessings and going with it.
You got your big break.
I got my break. So.
And earlier you said that you feel as though like things kind of worked out, or as though you were lucky. But I want to take a moment to acknowledge and say that, you know, it's hard work. It's really hard work that got you to where you are. You, by no means, like, well, don't get me wrong. There's such a thing as right place, right time. I agree with that. I think right place, right time does exist.
Right.
But I think it also has to be the right person. Right person that puts in the effort, makes the work. If you weren't capable of holding the role that you're in right now, you wouldn't be in it.
Right.
And you were able to do that in spades, I would say, in spades. So congratulations to you.
Thank you.
You do excellent work. And I just want to say again, just thank you for being here, and thank you for taking this time to share with the students your experience, to share with the students, like, you know, the things that you've learned along the way. I know that this is but a part of your journey, and you're going to continue doing more fantastic, greater things, whether that be with whomever, or say you stay within Baker Hughes, and because it sounds like there's a lot of different programs.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and everybody is moving up.
But I want that to be the same thing for you. I want to see you just crazy trajectory. All of that said, thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Miss Faith.
Yes.